Hello, everybody. It's Heather Nichols here, and this is part 3 of a video series that I am doing right now around failure and how to handle failure. And because failure is a judgment, it's not actually a reality unless we make it so with our judgments, unless we insist upon, judging ourselves and judging the situation. And I'm sharing some tools in this series that allow you, hopefully, if you're willing to use them, and they're very different energetic tools from Access Consciousness and the Joy of Business, you can use these tools to turn anything that seems like a failure into a creative possibility. And Steve Bowman, who's an amazing businessman and creator and author and many things, he has this quote that I love that is, a problem is just a possibility with a point of view attached. So anything that you see as a problem, you can turn into a possibility if you change your point of view, you change your perspective. And what we've been talking about in this series is that when you do change your point of view, you get to have there's different possibilities that show up. So the question for today is, how can I use this to create greater? So again, a reminder, refresher, or if you haven't seen the first 2 videos, a question opens doors to new awareness, different awareness. It gets us beyond our judgment. It invites the universe to show us things. So how can I use this to create even greater? So we all have had those failures, quote unquote, in our lives. And I really do use that as a quote, a quotable word, because I don't really believe that failure is a thing. And that's not because it's fantasy land. It's like, I actually really see everything that occurs as fodder for something greater. No matter what the circumstances are, there's always a possibility in every situation if I change my perspective and I ask some questions. So how can I use this to create greater? So if there is something that you feel like you have failed at, something that didn't work, something that seemed like, it's not going to go, it's not going to show up, it's not going to happen, then it still may, and use the questions in the first 2 videos to play with it as well. And you can, when you ask, how can I use this to create something greater, you're acknowledging that there is awareness there, that we all get awareness from everything that we do, and particularly if you are a seeker, if you're somebody who's looking for greater possibilities, you're looking for more, you're going to have awareness all the time from all kinds of things that occur in your life. And it's one of our greatest gifts. It's one of our greatest capacities. And I believe it's our greatest asset, really, is our awareness. Our greatest wealth is our awareness. And so as you have more awareness, things occur and you have more awareness. It's kind of like, people say, like, learning from your mistakes. I also don't really get that there's mistakes, but learning from the things that transpire, the things that we create. And as we do, we can take this massive wealth of awareness that comes out of any situation, and we can use it to create so much greater, especially when you have the point of view of that. And when you're willing to look from that point of view, you're willing to stay out of the judgment, and you're willing to be, continually curious as to what else is possible. Another great question. So when so here's an example, like say you had a business. Actually, I knew a lady years ago that had a business that failed massively. And within a very short period of time, their business, she and her husband, their business just absolutely tanked. There was all this stuff going on in the financial markets, and they just lost everything. They went into bankruptcy, and they had to move back to live with his family, and kind of recuperate and recover and get back on their feet again. They had children, they had small children, And so they, that's a classic failure according to, this world, right? Bankruptcy, business failure. Well, they were in the question, how can we use this to create something greater? And what occurred was that they moved back to where his family lived, where he had grown up. He started working in the family business. He exploded the family business. And at the same time, there was some things going on environmentally in this particular area where all of a sudden the family business it was like kind of a monopoly in this area where they lived. And it was like very, very, very needed. It became a very valuable business because of what was going on environmentally and all these other things happening in their area. So all of a sudden their business went from just this kind of like, yeah, it was okay, to like everybody was using their services. And they ended up selling this business for many, 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 many millions. And they, this couple was able to reap that, and, it was that distributed in the family and everything. So it was this beautiful example of how failure, quote unquote, led to this completely different possibility. And if they hadn't failed at the business that they had, they would never have, gone and moved and done all these things and become multimillionaires. And in the course of a very short time, it was maybe a couple years. So you never know what's going to show up, down the road. And we have to remember that. And we're not necessarily good at remembering that when we're stressed and we're in judgment, we feel like we failed. So when you judge, you shut down future possibilities. When you stay curious and you be in the question, you open future possibilities. And this is one of the greatest ways that we create greater from quote unquote failure. So how can I use this to my advantage? How can I use this to create a greater future? If you know that you can, and you know that you will somehow take time out of the equation, you will. And it's up to you to have that perspective and that point of view. And that is always a choice.